Hey, what's up, Cardfighters? BOTCG here, and I wanted to do a quick little deck profile on a personal favorite of mine, which story time with the playmat. This was the first top 8. I don't think it was this was the first top 8 I ever got at Kingslayer cards. I believe I got like a top 8 or 2 when it was like Golden Phoenix Games, and then it was like Possession of the Company was changed to Kingslayer cards or what have you. But this was the first time I ever got with them, like when I returned back to D, and it was with my favorite deck, BAROMAGNES. So, you know, sorry for the little 30-second blab there, but getting onto the deck profile here, there's really nothing much that has changed. Or no, that's a lie. That's a lie. The way the deck the way you play the deck now is it's more accustomed to this more aggressive format, and because of how aggressive this format is, you can be rewarded for playing the deck this way and not just get grinded out or necessarily punished. Going on to the grade 3s, the only grade 3 we're playing in this deck is 4 copies of Curtis. I tried a build earlier last week that you guys saw that wasn't playing Curtis, and it was just a mistake. Like, Curtis is just so good with like all your other soul charge cards. The French scenario where you do use the CB2 ability doesn't come up as often as it used to, but it's a nice to have, not a need to have. 4 copies of Crimson Expeller. I really do wish I soul charged this card more, because we're not playing Persona Ride, since Persona Ride's essentially a dead card until turn 4, since it doesn't really soul charge you until turn 4 when you ride on top of your Vanguard. We're playing 4 copies of Expeller. Expeller is like kind of like a discount Persona Ride, because for a CB, and it can also be a soul charge piece, depending if you've used the Direful doll or not. But it gives a 10k to your Vanguard, which I really like that ability on this card in this format, just being able to make my Vanguard a base 33 by itself after I use its ability. And again, it's another key soul charge card, which you can expend in the early game, depending on what deck you're versing against. But the way you play this deck is you still play this deck as big combo. You still essentially like Texas Hold'em until you get to turn 3. 4 copies of Selfish Engraver. I've actually gone down on Engraver. I don't like. You still need Engraver in the deck because it is your counter charge outlet. And it still has that on-hit soul charge. That on-hit soul charge really doesn't come up as much as it used to. But yeah, I've come down on Engraver. You really don't want to see Engravers. It's not really a soul charge piece unless you already have 10 or more in soul. It's more of like a... It's just a counter charge engine of the deck. 4 copies of what I would call the star of the deck is Lilac Rusher. Now, my original list of this deck I did take from a couple of local tops, I believe, in either Singapore or Indonesia, and they were playing 4 Lilac Lashers, and I do agree. They were playing like 3 to 4 Lilac Lashers. I really like 4 Lilac Lashers in this deck. It is your big beater. This is literally how you win games, just because these guys get so large. And coincidentally, it's actually really good in the Shiranui matchup, because they can't just dominate it and like dominate it with Magin Tembu and retire it, because like with it's not gonna hit your Vanguard because they'll give it +5 and then they'll give it +4, which what +5 is 7, then +4 is 11. Yeah, it doesn't hit your Vanguard. They usually hit other rear guards. More often than not, they dominate another rear guard to hit this card. But you usually never guard this. Like, that's why you play 4, is because you know it's going to be a bait. It's gonna be it's gonna have a huge target on its back as soon as it hits the board. This can literally sometimes save you from dying, because your opponent will literally tunnel vision on seeing Lilac Lasher on the board, and they'll literally be like, I have to get that thing off the board just because it hits so large by itself. 3 copies of Twin Sword. You're basically maxing out on everything else. We can only fit 3 Twin Sword in here. We're not playing the grade 2 Keenly Lewdly that puts cards back in deck. I believe this format is so fast that you're not really worried about deck out. You either win, or you either like beat your opponent down by like turn 4, or like turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 the latest, or you lose. So I'm not really worried about I'm not really worried about deck out, but this, you still need this. Like at 3, I was playing it at 2, and I really like, there was times where I did see it, and then there was times where I didn't see it. You really need this to help sculpt your hand, so that you're able to defend against your opponent's crackback. This deck still ideally wants to go first. Sometimes you can like be cheesy and go second, and like you're able to wipe your opponent's board and hit them on the crackback, but more often than not, you really do want to go first in this deck and just ride up on them and then smack them for really large numbers. 3 copies of main deck Flaming Pony. We are playing 1 Flaming Pony in the ride line. That's because of the key card of this deck. Like with the way that this deck works now, I hard mulligan for this card. Like every other card I can throw away. Like sometimes I'll keep a Flaming Pony to put into Soul off my ride line, but I'll hard mulligan for this card. And that's 4 copies of Direful Doll Amadadine. This is the whole deck because it increases your soul charges. I have literally played games, and I believe I've had this on camera, to whereas I will counterblast 1 with Amadadine, increase my soul charges, turn my Flaming Ponies into soul charge 3s, and I'll literally bind a pony, soul charge 3, soul charge a pony, bind a pony, soul charge 3, soul charge another pony. Now that's RNG, but still at the same time, like this is literally 1 card that can get you to the 15 by itself. 4 copies of Brainwash Swirler, broken. This card shines the most in this deck because of the mass soul charging you do in 1 turn. Like I've literally hit opponents for like 91k, over like 80k, over like 100k, and like when your opponent's like, even if your opponent did go first, like an attack like that, they like have to take it or perfect guard it. And I've had like games where like my opponent like, okay, take it, hit a defensive. Okay, I'm swinging again. Take it, they have to like hit another defensive. And then I'll swing with my Vanguard, and then because my Vanguard has crit pressure, more often than not, they'll either no pass the Vanguard or they'll PG the Vanguard regardless, and then I'll call out 2 Lilac Lashers that still hit over those defensive triggers for a decent amount. 4 copies of the DPGs. You can run the Blitz Order PG if you really want to. This deck doesn't build a lot of hand, so if you're not specifically up against a grade 4 deck or a deck that does get the triple drive ability, you really are doing yourself a disservice, because you would rather have the DPG like 9 times out of 10, because like this deck really doesn't build hand. It's really good at sculpting what's in its hand, but it can't generate a large hand. 1 copy of the Dark States Overtrigger. You can run either of the Cray Elemental Overtriggers. I just prefer this Overtrigger in this specific deck because you're not really committing to the board early, more often than not, especially if you're going first. So this is an Overtrigger that you can hit in any stage of the game, and it'll always be effective. 3 copies of the effect fronts. Going back to my ruts, guys, I did try draw triggers. Draw triggers really, like in BAROMAGNES specifically, draws just really have never worked out for me personally, and I am one to believe that the trigger lineup is personal. Like and like you could call like certain components of a deck standard no matter what, but the trigger lineup to me is like always personal to like what works for that player specifically. And like fronts have always worked out better for me in BAROMAGNES. Like if I draw into them, like that 20k shield is gonna help me live, and there are turns to whereas I can't call out a sufficient front row, and that front trigger just like helps you get there. 4 copies of Into Soul Crits. It's better to need them and not. It's better to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. Has always been my saying for this deck specifically. 4 regular crits, and then 4 vanilla heals. I'm still not, especially in this deck, I'm still not a believer of the effect heals. Don't at me. They never worked for me personally, guys. Like I said, trigger lineups are personal, but yeah, this is my BAROMAGNES deck profile, I guess, post triple drive booster, because there's really nothing, like maybe you could like cut one random card for an Angel Ladder if you really wanted to, but this isn't like one of those decks that would largely benefit off of Angel Ladder itself. Like same thing with the Blitz Order PG. You could play it if you really wanted to, but I just feel like this, for me personally, this is the best way that I can play the deck to best perform with it myself. Like the only tidbit I could really give to anyone that's like been a BAROMAGNES fan and like wants to play this deck in this format, it is going to be a little bit challenging and a hard mulligan for your Direfodal Amonadine, because without her you really can't do much. You don't have like the best way to get to the 15 very easily. You can get to 10 without Amonadine, but more often than not you can't get to the 15 without Amonadine. And my second piece of advice would be, don't give up. Like literally all like the locals that I went to last week, shout out to Versus Games in Oviedo, Florida, in the Oviedo Mall. There was literally games where I was like, why am I still alive? I should be dead right now. Or like, I'm about to die. I should just scoop them up. And like, I was like, let me not scoop them up. And I literally win out of nowhere. Like, don't explain to me how I won. Literally, Lilac Lashers and your Vanguard's ability will cut the lifespan of the game in half, just because your opponent has to rebuild their board every turn and guard these large attacks and guard this crit Vanguard. So don't give up, guys. Trust me, this deck will literally win out of nowhere and your opponent will be very salty, like, why am I losing to this? But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. We're very close to that 1K mark. I believe we're like at this point a little under 70 subscribers to get that 1K mark, or 60 subscribers. But yeah, guys, we're gonna have a big playmat giveaway, our channel banner. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't seen that already. And you already know. Y'all have a great night. Later.